Hi, guys. Welcome back to Sports with Mono and Mono. It's Saturday, April 12th, and look out the window. I had snow on my car. So we talked about the weather, Eli, like started to turn spring, and now my tulips don't know what to do.
I know. I really don't know. Luckily for me, I got no snow by me. It's just rain, thankfully. But from other areas, and I know by you, you guys got snow. Sorry to hear that for you guys, but we have
Eh,
a great day, great show ahead. Let's not worry about the weather and let's focus on the fun of sports, though.
We shall. So, Eli, great to have you with us again. Like I said, we had breaking news that you'll be attending Seton Hall
Hell yeah, that was
in
last
the
week.
fall, so that's cool. Very
Yes,
good.
appreciate it.
All right. So as Eli said, we got a lot of stuff to talk about this week, and of course, it's always starts off with the monologue, which is sponsored by Coriano Trucking of Summerhill, New York, and we'll have a little picture of our sponsor on on our photo segment later on in the show. So Eli, this is Masters weekend. So the
It is
monologue this week is indeed the
the
Masters, and
Masters.
you and I have talked, and it's a very, very special tournament for me. I've been watching this for decades now, and there's something magical about Augusta National, and it always starts off with the ceremonial first tee with Jack Nicklaus, Gary Player, and Tom Watson, and it's really amazing when you see the history of the Masters and Gary Player. He's 89 years old, and he's got a body like a 50-year-old, and
Wow.
strikes it right down the middle. He's a I think a two-time Masters champ. Of course, Jack Nicklaus with six and Tiger with four. And now we have Scotty Scheffler in the mix again. He's won two out of the past three Masters. And if he wins this Masters, him and Jack Nicklaus will be the only two golfers ever to win three tournaments in a 4-year span. So um, when we look at like I said, it's really a magical time. Um, if you're a golf fan, even if you're not a golf fan, I would hope. I know guys that play golf and they say we don't watch. I don't watch golf regularly on TV, but they do watch the Masters and they do watch the U.S. Open. So it's a great time for me. I'm looking forward to today. Yesterday was cut day, and a couple of notes. There were some veterans, and in one case it was Bernard Langer, who's a two-time Masters champ and always considered one of the classier guys in there. And he actually missed the cut. 67 years old, only missed the cut by one shot, and that was
Wow.
awesome. I was pulling for him. It's probably his last Masters. And also, when you see the Masters former champ Fred Couples, who was one of my favorites growing up, he won a Masters, and he was in the mix after the first day. Shot a one under on the first day, and had a tough day yesterday, so he missed it by one stroke as well. So it's the young guys. There's some old guys mixed in, but it is a magical thing. And today is what they call Saturday traditional. It's called moving day. So the cuts were made. So the golfers that'll be in for Saturday and Sunday will be playing today and tomorrow. And Justin Rose is leading it. And like I said, my three picks that I had was Scotty Scheffler, of course. I think that was one of yours as well.
Yes, it was.
Uh, Colin Morikawa was also a common pick of you and I. And my
And Roy,
sleeper pick
I had.
was Shane Lowry, who's up in the mix too. So he's in the top 10. So we're doing pretty
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, and I also had Roy in the mix, but no, not so
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. We've seen him miss some small putts. It's crazy. But
Yeah.
and Justin Rose, this is a 2-day leader. Um, and the last time somebody led after the first two rounds of the Masters was Justin Rose. So he's still a formidable thing. He doesn't fold under pressure. So he's going to be in the mix. He's the guy to beat. And you
Yeah.
have a guy like Bryson DeChambeau is also in second place right now. So it's wide open. A lot of people could win this Masters, and coverage starts today, and of course tomorrow on CBS. And interesting fact, who's calling it is Jim Nance, and Jim Nance was Fred Couples' golf teammate at the University of Houston.
Houston.
So that was
Incredible,
all.
isn't it?
It's
And
great,
Mark
isn't
Klein
it?
comments, he says, guys of our vintage pattern are swings after couples, didn't we, Jim?
Yeah, it is one of the most beautiful swings in all of golf. It looks like he's not even swinging the club, and it just goes to the moon. It's great. And thank you,
Absolutely.
Martin, for your comment. I know Marty's a golfer as well, so I know he's had interest in the Masters, and it's just a great event. And I'd love for people to send us a comment at sports with email, sports with mono and mono at gmail.com, and give us your thoughts on the Masters. And
And
it's
Diego
just a great
checks
event.
in.
So I hope people tune in.
Diego checks in. He says, hello, boys.
Yes. Good morning, Diego. And by the way, now that we have Diego listening to the show, he is our resident soccer expert. Gave me some feedback that we don't cover a lot about the Premier League and international soccer. So I think we're going to have him on the show to
To
kind of
try
give us a little
stuff.
tutorial on the Premier League and European soccer and yeah, so Diego, get ready to be on the show in the next week or two. So
Haha.
thanks for joining us.
Thanks for joining.
Okay, Eli, start us off. Where are we going
Well,
first?
we
Why don't we?
talked about golf, so let's go to the NHL real quick. And I think we have to start it because a major milestone has happened. Alex Ovechkin becomes the greatest goal scorer in NHL history, scoring number 895 versus the New York Islanders last Sunday. And he
Yep.
did it in the same amount of games when Wayne Gretzky broke the record for 895.
Yeah, we
Incredible.
brought that up
894.
last week a little bit, right? We did.
Yeah.
Same number of games. I actually had an opportunity. I was watching the game, so I got to see the history of it live while I was
Yeah.
watching the game. And
So I was,
it's a record, Eli. I didn't think could ever be broken, but it's
but yet
broken.
here we are.
Yeah.
Now, one record that won't be broken is the assist for Wayne Gretzky.
No, absolutely not.
Never.
I do have one interesting fact, Eli, about this goal scoring. And when we talk about Gretzky, we talk about Ovechkin. We can't leave talking about the NHL and the history of goal scoring without talking about Mario Lemieux, whose career was kind of cut short with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. But he had, and when we talk about this, how many games did it take Wayne Gretzky and Ovechkin?
Same
1,487,
1400. Yep.
right? And but when you look at it, and it's a shame that his career was cut short, but Mario Lemieux had 690 goals in only 915 games. So,
Wow.
I mean, if anybody had a chance, which I always thought until he got, he came down with the cancer thing, he was the only one I thought had a shot at breaking Wayne
Breaking the
Gretzky's
Gretzky.
record. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, that's incredible stat there. But I give
Isn't it?
credit to the NHL, TNT, and even the New York Islanders because to put up that type of show last week was incredible. To have the whole ceremony, and even the Islanders fans were into it and excited when he scored the goal.
Yep.
That's what I love to see, and that's how you know how close of a community the NHL truly is. And that was such a special moment. I was watching the first period. I did leave. I didn't get to see the goal, but I saw it on Twitter. I saw it on X, Instagram. So it was such a surreal moment, and it's guess you could say world history. I guess you could say because it's rare to see that type of accomplishment happen, especially a guy like Wayne Gretzky, still the greatest of all time, but not for goal scoring anymore. But incredible, right there.
Yeah, and when you think about it, Eli, there's always a couple records. Like we never thought that Lou Gehrig's 2,130 game consecutive streak would ever be broken,
And here we
and
are.
that was broken by Cal Ripken. So that was an incredible.
Incredible accomplishment.
Yeah, it was
And
definitely.
now off of Wayne Gretzky and Alex Ovechkin, we are in the midst of almost starting with the NHL playoffs. We have a couple teams in already and a couple teams out. The playoffs begin next Saturday. Here are the teams in so far for the Eastern Conference. You have the Capitals, the Maple Leafs, the Lightning, the Hurricanes, Panthers, Senators, and the Devils just clinched because of a Rangers loss on Wednesday, which although I have a feeling they're either going to be swept or losing a Game 5, in my opinion, because they've been playing horrible. They lost last night to the Penguins. 4-2. The Penguins are eliminated along with the Sabres, Flyers, and Bruins. On the Western Conference side of things, the Jets, the Stars, the Knights, the Avalanche, the Kings, and the Oilers are all moving on to the next round of the playoffs. The Canucks, the Utah Hockey Club, the Ducks, Kraken, Predators, Blackhawks, and Sharks all face elimination from this upcoming Stanley Cup playoff run.
Yeah, so my Rangers will be. They play today.
Yes,
They're
that's
next.
12:30.
Yeah, they're playing Carolina this afternoon, so they can't beat them. So today will probably be the nail in their coffin. But
That is correct.
congratulations to your Devils for making
Which
the
I
playoffs.
don't. I'm not really congratulated about it, and I'm not happy about it because they lost these past 2 games. They have not been playing good hockey, and Carolina is just as good of a team as the Devils. So I don't think we stand the shot really. But
Yep.
but that's just me coming from a Devils fan. But we'll see what
Okay.
happens. Of course. Again,
We
the
will.
Rangers are still technically alive, but the nail is going to be in the coffin eventually.
Yeah, they're on life support right now. So,
Pretty much.
all right, Eli, let's stick with hockey for a minute because I know one of our loyal listeners, Jim Walsh, and I exchanged some texts during the week, and I want to talk about the Frozen Four. It's
Yes.
basically the Final Four for NCAA hockey, and we had some great games this week. On Thursday, it was Denver versus Western Michigan, and Western Michigan, it's their first trip to the Frozen Four, and they came up, and it was a great game, and ended up going to double overtime, and they knocked off the defending Denver Pioneers national championship team. So
Yeah.
congratulations to them. And the reward for them is they get to face the Boston University Terriers in today's final, which is tonight
Yes.
at 7:30. I believe ESPN's carrying the game.
Yes.
And these are the future NHL stars.
NHL.
So
No, not NFL. Yeah.
yeah, no, but it's actually great to see. It was very exciting, and I hope people tune in. I know Jim
Yeah.
Walsh was pulling for the Boston College team, but BU, as you know, my little brother Steve's a graduate, my sister's a graduate, and my niece is a student at Boston University. So you know who I'm pulling for tonight.
Absolutely.
Right?
100%. All
Great
right.
stuff on hockey.
Let's go to the NBA real quick, and then we'll go to the MLB and NFL.
Well, how about we start first of all with our recap of
Oh, the
the
national championship, of
NCAA.
course. I can't
Yeah,
believe I forget this. Absolutely.
right. So let's talk about that. And there were very good games, and you looked at it. Duke had them on the ropes, and they had Houston, and they let the big lead slip away. And I was pulling for Duke, not only because I have a nice history of watching Duke basketball, but I
Because of
was
Cooper
pulling
Flag.
for Cooper Flag. I really was.
Yeah.
Because he's going to be in the NBA next year. But I was
Absolutely.
hoping, that would have been a great Cinderella story. And then
Absolutely.
Florida, they were trailing against Auburn, and they ended up winning that game. And they were down by, 8 points against Houston in the finals, and it turned out to be a great second half. Walter Clayton Jr., who was
Excellent.
couldn't throw it in the ocean in the first half, really turned up his game, and I think it was a great. I know you were a little disappointed that we had all four number one seeds in the final, but this was
But it was pretty excellent. I do have to admit that it was an excellent Final Four. But what was confusing to me was the national championship. Houston had the ball, 30 seconds left. The score is by 2. Florida had the lead. We're standing there. We're doing nothing with it. We're at the 3-point line. We're doing nothing.
yeah.
Hello, you have 30 seconds left. That is a ton of time. And I know people are thinking 30 seconds, that's nothing. In basketball, especially in college basketball, that's a ton of time. You could
Yeah,
have done something. I know Florida's defense was there, but what was going on?
yeah.
I was like shocked. I really was. And congrats to Florida, but it could have been Houston. It absolutely could have been Houston.
Well, listen, Houston hadn't been in the final championship game. This was their third trip back when they had Clyde Drexler and Akeem Olajuwon back in the early '80s. Was the last time they had a shot. So,
Yeah.
um, hey, Kelvin Sampson's done a great job with that program. So, expect them to be back, and of course, Auburn and Bruce Pearl, the job he did, and
Yeah.
even John Shire to get Duke to where they were was. I think the tournament was great, and both you and I had Florida to win the whole thing, and so I did win my quote unquote office pool, even though it was just a gentleman's bet, but I did win
Okay,
that pool.
absolutely.
All right.
Diego comments. He says looking forward to it for his appearance for the show.
Good.
William Hathaway comments from Orange, New Jersey, checking in, saying good morning.
Good morning, William. Thanks for joining us on the show. And like I said, we got a lot of stuff to talk about. And if you have some comments, please feel free to chime in during the show. Great,
Yeah.
great to have you.
And meanwhile, UConn wins the national championship, defeating South Carolina in a blowout game, 82-59. I was really pulling for South Carolina, but Paige Beckers and UConn pull through, and they win the national championship. They and the UConn University, they're taking home the championship. Last year was the men twice in a row, and now the women's make sure that there is a championship still brought home to the university. Congrats to
Yeah.
UConn. And Jim,
And
you were right about the pick. I had South Carolina. I was wrong about it. So I give you my props there.
well, it ends up being a great storybook finish for Paige Beckers because UConn women, believe it or not, it was hard to believe that they hadn't been in the finals since 2016. And it's amazing, that the career she had, rare 4-year starter, um, battled a lot of things, but you got to give credit to Gino Oriyama, 70 years old. It's his 12th national championship, which is the most by any college coach in NCAA sports history. So
Absolutely.
got to give him credit.
Incredible.
Great.
William comments, he asks, what do you think of the current NIL and transfer portal?
Well, I think, William, first and foremost, Eli and I have talked about this time and time again. I
Yep,
think it's hurting the game.
it
I
is.
think it's gotten out of control from what it was originally designed to be. Is to compensate players for their likeness and video games and so forth. And now it's turned into basically free agency. So you're seeing this happen, right after the start of, soon as the NCAA tournament was over, teams are just, their
Just
rosters are going to be
switching.
completely overhauled. And I don't think it's good. I like the old tradition where you had guys like Bobby Hurley for Duke who played 4 years. And nobody's going to play 4 years if you're a top quality thing. And now it goes to the highest bidder. I don't like it. I don't like it at
I
all.
don't at all.
And unfortunately, the cat's out of the bag, and that's how it's going to be. And we're going to find out. It's not only going to be with basketball. Obviously, we're seeing this in NCAA football. For example, the quarterback. Tough pronunciation. Nico Imilueva, quarterback of Tennessee. So what are we seeing? We're basically seeing him hold out. He wants to stay with Tennessee, but he wants to get paid like a top quarterback in the league. And this is going to be something we're going to see time and time and time again. So I don't think it's good for sports.
And I don't think so either. And I brought up in the monologue last week, St. Francis University having to switch to D3 athletics from D1 to D3 because they cannot simply take on this NIL portal. And there's no shot that they even have competition against these other schools to compete in the Northeast Conference that they're currently in. And also with the rest of the NCAA, because again, the money is just taking these players away left and right. So,
Yeah.
just a small example, I am not a fan of this at all. And a perfect example is St. Francis University having to go to D3 now.
Yeah, and I saw one of our loyal listeners. Like, I talk about this frequently. We have a couple of guests, a couple of loyal listeners, Derek Crude and Frankie Pisani. We talk about this all the time, and we've seen like BYU has opened the vaults, and they're paying these guys $4 million,
Yeah, it's a
and
ton of
so
money.
it's gotten out of control, William. But I appreciate you asking the question, but it's not good for sports.
No. Let's go to the NBA.
Yep.
All right. Well, a big firing has happened. The Nuggets have fired Michael Malone, their head coach, and they're still technically in a shot for the playoff run. This was a
Yeah.
surprising move because right now they're technically hold a spot in the playoffs. They cannot be eliminated. They're going to be in the playoffs. It's just whether or not they go to the play-in or the actual playoffs itself and clinch a spot. They're currently in fourth place right now. They stand at a 49-32 record. It came as a surprise here, Jim.
Yeah, well, I'm going to tell you, it is a surprise, certainly. But again, when we talked about the Luka for Anthony Davis trade, which was basically one of the best players getting traded for a guy that used to be a formidable player in Anthony Davis. So that the Lakers clearly got the best of that trade.
Yeah.
But Mike Malone, and I hate to say this, because I really like this guy Jokic. And by the way, he's only the third player to average a triple double for the season. So, but
Yeah.
he had to have signed off on this. He's the best player and one of the best players in the game. So there must be some kind of a rift between Malone. I know Malone and the GM had, didn't get along either, but both of them got fired. So if just like we said, if you don't think LeBron James had something to do with the Luka trade, you have to think that Jokic had something to do with Mike Malone getting fired with 3 games left in the season and only 2 seasons away from 2 seasons removed from winning the NBA championship. Crazy story. Crazy
Absolutely.
story.
No question. And speaking of playoffs, we have the playoffs already locked in. Mostly every team is in except for a couple teams in the Western Conference: Cleveland, Boston, New York Knicks, Indiana Pacers, the Bucks, the Pistons, and Magic have all clinched spot in the east side of the playoffs. In the play-in tournament is the Hawks, the Bulls, and the Heat, the Raptors, Nets, 76ers, Hornets, and Wizards all face elimination.
Yep.
On the Western Conference side of things, the Thunder, the Rockets, and the Lakers are in. Denver, the Clippers, Denver Nuggets, Clippers, Warriors, and Timberwolves have not officially clinched yet, but they will be eventually. Grizzlies, Kings, and Mavericks will play in the play-in. The Suns, the Trailblazers, the Spurs, the Pelicans, and the Jazz have all faced elimination. The play-in begins on April 15th. It extends to Friday, April 18th, and those tournament games are available on TNT and ESPN.
Yep. Well, the 1-2 seeds in the East is Cleveland, actually, not Boston, the number 1 seed.
Yeah.
So that was a surprise. Now, who's 1 and 2 in the West, Eli?
1 and 2 is going to be the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Houston Rockets at number 2.
Right. Big surprise there. What a turnaround for the Houston Rockets, by the way.
Absolutely. Big turnaround.
Incredible.
Absolutely.
So here's the thing, right? Local New York fans, even though we have fans across the country, the New York Knicks are going to be taking on the Detroit Pistons, and that's
Yeah.
that's not
That's
an
not
easy
easy.
thing. The way Cade Cunningham is developed into one of the best players in the game as well. So the Knicks will have their hands full, but remember, they're 0-8 against Boston and Cleveland during the regular season. So they're going to have to meet up with one of those 2 teams. So
Eventually.
we'll,
So, yeah, they
we'll
have their
see.
work cut out for them.
Yep.
All right.
And like I said, that was an interesting stat about Jokic averaging a triple double. I think I know Oscar Robertson did it, and I'm going to probably guess that the other one was Wilt Chamberlain. I don't know
Yes.
that for sure, but
I believe so.
I would
Yeah.
think so.
All right.
Wow.
Let's go to the NFL real quick, and then we'll go to the MLB.
Yep.
Okay, so in the NFL, the biggest storyline of the week was Saints quarterback Derek Carr. He's dealing with a shoulder injury and now could miss the upcoming season. That is big news for Saints fans. What do they do is the question. And remember, the draft is just 2 weeks away. So what do? Do they do something in the draft? Do they trade up? Do they get another player out there? Do they get Aaron Rodgers, who is still a free agent? Let us keep in mind, he is still a free agent. He has not signed yet. So they could get Aaron Rodgers. Let's point that out there. So what do this Saints team do? Jim, what do we think?
Well, listen, that does change the potential dynamic of the draft because now they're in dire need of a quarterback. And again, there's a lot of speculation, mock drafts. Eli, we could go on and on and on. It just it's like I said, it's all speculation. We'll know in 2 weeks. But yes, that does change the dynamic. And if the Giants decide to go with the best player available, maybe Abdul Carter or whatnot, and they trade down and get a quarterback on the way back, I think it's a consensus. Cam Ward will be the number 1 overall pick. But it does change the dynamic, and it changes the dynamic for all teams because
Absolutely.
now the Giants, have a little bit more leverage. If the Saints want to move up in the draft and take a Shador Sanders and or a Jackson Dart, who's been rapidly moving up the draft board, even though we knew he was a good quarterback. I think he was a transfer initially, I want to say from USC, and then he went to Ole Miss. So
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of speculation, and things will happen in the next 2 weeks leading up to the draft, but we may not know what's actually going to go on until draft day, which is going to
That
make
is
it
crazy to
very,
think about,
very,
but it's becoming the reality.
yeah.
Other
I
news.
will. Let's go ahead, Eli. I'm sorry.
Uh, Seahawks signed Drew Lock back from the Giants. He went to the Giants for a year, and now Seattle's re-signed him back. Giants got too many quarterbacks, so that's mainly the reason why. Uh,
Yeah, and the
Go
funny
for it.
thing is, a couple other little notes. Joe Flacco, who's 40 years old, I don't understand how he
Yeah,
keeps getting this jobs, but he's got one hell of an agent, I'll tell you that.
1 year,
But
$4 million back with the Browns. Incredible.
right, for a 40-year-old quarterback that
Yeah,
really hasn't been effective. And it makes you
absolutely.
wonder, about, the situation, maybe the Vikings aren't 100% certain that JJ McCarthy is going to be healthy and can take them to the next level. I don't know. It's kind of weird. Like
It's
guys
a
like
weird
Kirk
situation.
Cousins are out there, still out there, and
Yeah.
nobody's picking them up.
Two
Crazy.
other notes. Texans signed Jalen Petrie to a 3-year, $39 million deal, and Dolphins left tackle Teron Armstead announces his retirement from the league.
Yeah, he was a good player, actually. Very good player.
William comments. He asks, "What's the deal with the Giants? Will they draft a quarterback? Will Russell Wilson be fighting for a quarterback job?"
Well, listen, I think it's pretty safe to say that whether it lasts the entire season or not, they brought Russell Wilson in to be the starting quarterback. We know this isn't the Russell Wilson when he was the quarterback of your Seahawks,
Yep.
but it's a stopgap, and that's all we could ask for. So I really do think that the Giants need to draft a quarterback because if they don't, and they don't get a franchise type quarterback if they move down the draft, it's going to set the program back another 2, 3 seasons.
Yeah. All right. Time now to move to the MLB, I think.
Yeah, so let's touch base on that. So, like we expected, the Dodgers are the Dodgers, right? They got an
Yeah.
all-star lineup. They got Mookie Betts back. Otani's having a great year. I don't know what their plans are for him. He's starting to throw a little bit, some practice sessions, but like I said, I don't know if you want to put that extra pressure on him to be a pitcher and an MVP, uh, position player, and I just don't know how that's going to work out. But so far, the Dodgers are playing like the Dodgers, and the Mets are getting off to a better start than I had hoped because I'm a
Exactly.
Yankee
Really,
fan.
I hope exactly there. Yeah.
But right now, it's Juan Soto's not exactly earning his $750 million, so that's always going to be a
That.
problem.
Yeah. Well, we kind of figured that, but yeah.
And we
Look,
look at the Yankees though, Eli. Even though they're hitting and scoring a lot of runs, the
they're
pitching
still
is going to
losing.
be the question mark all season long. And we know Marcus Stroman and Carlos Rodon can be a hit or miss every time they take the ball.
Yep.
You can count on Judge at least during the regular season to put up
Not
big
so much the
numbers.
postseason.
I
But
know.
again, as I keep on saying every week, it's a roller coaster ride for the MLB. At one point, you could be the best team in the world, and the roller coaster goes up, and then it goes right back down again, right back up, right back down. That's just how the
Yeah.
MLB works.
And a couple of, I guess, surprise teams, right? The Giants are playing very well. The Padres got off to a great start. But in the American League, um, that's wide open. And
It
that's
is.
why I'm not worried so much about the Yankees. I mean, they're going to score runs. They're going to win at least 85 games. And with the weak Central Division, they're at least going to get a wild card if they can at least stop the bleeding on this pitching problems that they have. And they're going to get Luis Heel back. They know Cole's out for the season, so they're going to have to. It's going to be a big challenge for Aaron Boone to move the pieces around to get them back in the playoffs.
Absolutely. Andrew Texan, he says, "Good morning, guys. Let's go Mets with the snowflake."
I know he's a big Mets fan. I get it. So is his brother Jimmy. I know that too. But I still watch the Mets. I do watch them because they're interesting, even though I can't stand Gary Cohen's one-sided, emotional homer
Yeah, calls and
broadcast.
stuff.
But
Absolutely. I don't blame you. Yeah.
But I do like listening to Ron Darling
On the radio,
because
yeah.
he's definitely a student of the game. So I
Absolutely.
appreciate that aspect of it.
The one big note from the MLB though this week was Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and the Blue Jays have agreed to a 14-year, $500 million deal.
Yes.
It's a lot of money, but I think it might be worth it. I think he's a decent, one heck of a player, that's for sure.
All right. Well, I got some thoughts on this, and I had talked about it with Frankie and Derek, who, they were potentially. He initially turned down a deal with Toronto because he
Yeah,
thought that he was going to get a Juan Soto $700 million deal, which I said
I
no
know.
way.
No
He
way.
doesn't have those same kind of numbers. And right now he's off to a slow start. He has 0 or maybe 1 home run,
Yeah.
but that's the market. And 500 million for 14 years. Okay.
What are you gonna do?
It is what it is, but it's not 700 million. I don't know anybody that's worthy of that. Maybe Otani and Eli. When you think about it, Aaron Judge is making a paltry like $375 million,
I know.
and he's one of the best hitters in the game.
It's
So
incredible. It
amazing
really is.
stuff.
Um, I think it's time now for some random points.
Okay, Eli, we got random points of interest, which of course is sponsored by Lynch Toyota of Manchester, Connecticut. I got a few, and then why don't you start us off, Eli, with
All
your
right.
random?
Well, I got two notes. First off, this Monday at 7:30 is the WNBA draft from New York live on ESPN. UConn's Paige Beckers is the top prospect to get the number one pick in the draft. The Dallas
Yep.
Wings currently hold the number one pick in this year's draft. San Diego's Nick Boyd has transferred to Wisconsin to continue to play basketball. He attended St. Mary High School and became a 1,000 point scorer with St. Mary's. He went from Florida Atlantic, went to the Final Four, went to San Diego, and now he's off to Wisconsin.
He went to your St. Mary's?
Yeah, our St. Mary High School in Rutherford, New Jersey.
I did not know that.
Yeah,
That's an
and
interesting
he
fact.
was with he played with first with Florida Atlantic. He went to the Final Four. That was when the Final Four happened just a couple years ago. He transferred to San Diego, and now he's off to Wisconsin to continue to play. And I think it all had to do with the whole COVID stuff. He couldn't play certain times, so now eligibility and all that stuff. So he's still playing, but now he's off to Wisconsin to play.
Yeah, how about that? Your co-host just learned something today. I didn't know he was a St. Mary's grad like
Yeah,
our
he
co-host.
apparently went to Don Bosco. Didn't get the opportunity he wanted. Went to St. Mary's. He became a 1,000 point scorer there. Played 2 years there, and then went off Florida
Wow.
Atlantic, and now San Diego, and now Wisconsin.
Wow. So we're gonna have two famous people from St. Mary's. What's his name? Nick Boyd?
Nick Boyd, yeah.
Nick Boyd and Eli Weintraub, the two of the most prominent St. Mary's
I'm
graduates in
sure.
recent
There's plenty more than just
memory.
me, Jim. I could just tell you that right now. Yeah, and that's all I got. But the sports talk with JR checks in. He says hi everyone. Good morning and thanks for tuning in.
Oh, I had a little blip on my screen. Who was that? Who was that, Eli?
That was JR. He checks in. He says hi everyone.
Oh, okay, JR. So we're gonna reach out to you. Eli's gonna reach out to you. You can give him some information so we could have you join the show as well.
All right, Jim. It's all yours.
All right, I got a couple here. So
Yep.
An interesting thing, the Pittsburgh Pirates, which kind of was like a franchise in disarray, but they had taken down a Roberto Clemente statue or plaque or whatever for an alcohol related advertisement. Obviously, a big outcry on that, so they're going to remedy that. But how could you do that? This is one of the greatest baseball players of all time, certainly the greatest baseball player in your franchise history, and you replace it for a beer advertisement. Somebody's got to be thinking ahead of the curve here and say,
Of course.
you think this is going to go over well? No, of course
Of
not.
course,
Terrible.
no. Well, that's what they wanted.
But they did fix it. They did fix it.
They did.
Um,
They did.
yeah, couple other quick things he liked when um, kind of on the disturbing side. Manager Sam Merzen resigns. And what does he do? He's assistant general manager, and he's out sending lewd pictures of himself to people on the Detroit Tigers staff. It's absolutely insane that these people have no judgment, and they
No,
think
they
they're going to
don't.
get away with it. So there goes his career in Major League Baseball, and I just see it and I shake my head. I said, "You have it
Absolutely.
this good, and you blow it. It's crazy."
Absolutely.
Um, and also when we did talk about the Masters, and I former Masters winner Angel Cabrera, who was recently released from a Brazilian jail for violent domestic abuse. And I don't understand. I guess it's the fine line between giving someone a second chance, but when you exhibited that type of behavior and you're allowed to play in the Masters, it sends the wrong message. I'm sorry, I can't get past it. And I've seen him play in person at various PGA Tour events, but this is a heinous act that he was consistently um, accused of, and subsequently he admitted it. But I would have said for the Augusta National Committee saying we don't need that kind of publicity here.
No, we
Not
don't.
that he's going to win the tournament, but second chances, that's a little much for me.
Absolutely.
And Eli, um, so I wanted to also give a shout out because today my grandson has a double header at Montclair State University in basketball. I don't know how this kid can play 4 basketball games a week and he plays 3 baseball games a week. It's just amazing. I
You know
love it
what?
and he loves it and it's cool. So I'm gonna go
Yeah.
see him play today.
I can never understand how these guys do it. Congrats to
Um,
him. Good luck out there. Get him on the show, Jim, to find out his experience and how he can handle it with school and everything.
you know what? That would be an absolute honor and almost a tearjerker for me to have him on the show. Well, I'll
You
have to
should.
talk to
Yeah.
I'll have to talk to his mother,
Well,
who's actually my dad.
okay. Well, that's more important.
Anyway, okay, Eli. So that
Well,
covers the random points of interest.
and now it's time for the entertainment and photo segment that is sponsored by Vital Selections. You could scan the QR code to learn more.
Okay, so we've been doing some pretty good movie recommendations, but I did see a kind of I don't want to say get hooked, but it's a very intriguing. It's called Zero Day. It's a Netflix um,
No.
mini series with Robert De Niro on Netflix and about cyber attacks, and we know how real that
Oh
is in
yeah.
today's crazy
Oh
society.
yes. Hmm.
So it makes you think about events that could happen and most likely will happen. But it's something that I would recommend. It's only a short series. I think maybe no more than 7, if 8 episodes. But it's pretty interesting, and it
Yeah.
starts to make you wonder, um, if this scenario really does happen, how the country would react. Interesting.
Absolutely. That's a big question. That's a great film to watch. Speaking of new, SNL is all new tonight with John Hamm and Lizzo. John Hamm's the host. Lizzo's the musical guest. I do love Lizzo, so I'm definitely going to watch that. ABC is showing the 10 Commandments tonight at 7 o'clock in honor of Easter weekend next week. It's a
Sure.
big marathon, so check that out if you're interested. And that's what I got. Time out for some videos and some photos.
Yeah, they always show the Ten Commandments the week before Easter. Always
Yeah.
tradition. Great.
And it's Palm Sunday weekend. Absolutely. All right, let's take a look at this video.
Yeah. So let me give the little backstory behind
Yeah.
that. That's from one of my dear Niagara friends who's from Syracuse, and that was a lacrosse game. Syracuse lacrosse, very prominent in lacrosse and
Yeah.
collegiate sports. And the interesting thing about it is the stadium, the on-campus stadium. It used to be called the Carrier Dome. And I was talking to another Syracuse guy who said the funny thing about it is Carrier, remember, big air conditioning sponsor,
Yeah.
that they did not have air conditioning in that dome.
Holy cow.
And the sponsorship has subsequently switched over to JMA Wireless. And they didn't have wireless in the stadium. I mean, what's going on here? These are
Whoa.
real facts.
Okay,
Isn't that
but I
funny?
don't even understand the air conditioning because you're in Syracuse. I mean, if it gets warm, it's a state of emergency, I think. But wow,
It's not
you
funny.
learn something new every day. That's a shocking moment there.
And it
Wow.
actually is a very nice venue.
Yeah,
I've been in that
absolutely.
and I've been in the dome. I actually, believe it or not, I went and when I was in college, I saw Dan Marino when he
Okay.
was at Pittsburgh play Syracuse when he was a freshman. So that was interesting. And I also saw the Rolling Stones in that dome as well.
All right.
So
Well, that's the more important part. The Rolling Stones, of course. Absolutely.
all
But
right,
let's
we
get to
got
some
another.
more photos.
Now those are my two. That's Hayden and Logan at. I think they're in. I don't know, St. Bart's or St. Martin, something like that.
Either way,
So these.
they're
Isn't that?
enjoying the weather while we're stuck here in the cold, snowy, rainy Jersey.
Yep. And as I mentioned before, we have our sponsor. This is a picture I was kind of just going through, and I stumbled across. This is about back in 2019. Had a nice day with Guy Coriano, our sponsor of the show, and his friend Paul. It was just a great day out in Pennsylvania. So, and by the way, Coriano is a pretty damn good golfer.
All right. Well, send him to the Masters. Time
Yeah, and
now, unfortunately, for some notable passings. We do have a ton this week.
yeah, let's touch base on a couple of events that happened, Eli, and that the tragedy at the nightclub in Santo Domingo, the Dominican Republic, just horrifying.
Killed two
Close to
MLB players
200
too.
people lost their lives. Yeah, and there was some. We'll bring those up in a minute. But God, you see events like that, and it
It's
breaks your
horrible.
heart. And
It really
and
does.
then now the East Coast thing. We saw a terrible event happen right before our eyes. In the Hudson River in New York City, a family of six or family of five, and the pilot in a helicopter accident. Just I mean, it's not the first time we've seen it. It's not going to be the last time unless they get regulations or something. But just a heartbreaking story
It's
there
really
too.
horrible to hear.
Yep.
And then yesterday in Florida too, another plane crash. Three people died, and one still in critical condition in the hospital. Though
Yeah, I know. It's
it's
kind of
horrible to
weird.
hear about all this that is happening.
Yep. All right. So we do have some other notable passings, and I'll throw out the name Jay North. A lot of people won't know him or recognize him, but I
Dennis the
certainly
Menace.
remember him. He was Dennis the Menace. That's right. And that was he ran for like 6 seasons
Yeah, it did.
on TV back then. So he was like a child star kind of thing. And then he never really did anything in show business after that. But he was kind of, Dennis the Menace, the cartoon, or, just, you know, like I
Yeah,
said, he had a pretty good run. He was 73 years old. And you could still see reruns. They are on reruns all the
on
time.
MeTV.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
A couple other notes. Greg Millen. Greg
Yep.
Millen, former,
NHL
excuse me,
goaltender.
yeah, NHL goaltender, 67 years old, played for a bunch of teams, but I remember him more prominently with the Pittsburgh Penguins, and he won a Stanley Cup with the Pittsburgh
Yep.
Penguins as well. So he went on to become a Penguins broadcaster, but he was well admired in the business, and that's a big loss for the NHL. And as you
Absolutely.
pointed out, Eli, Octavio Dotel was one of those former major league pitchers that was involved in the Dominican
Yeah.
Republic nightclub tragedy, and
And Tony Blanco.
he was only 51 years old. And yeah, Tony Blanco. But Octavio Dotel played for 13 different teams in Major League Baseball, which is second all time. So that was notable.
Wow.
Um, sticking with Sticking with sports, Ray Shero, who's the son
Yes.
of Fred Shero, former head coach of the Philadelphia Flyers, and Ray Shero was the
Manager
general
too.
manager. Yeah, we brought it up. He might have been the general manager of the team that Greg Millen was on when Pittsburgh won it in 1989.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Horrible
And
to
he had
hear.
a lot of jobs, and he was a general manager for the most part. But
Absolutely.
we always say, there's genes, right? Fred Shiro, great head coach. His son follows in his footsteps. Ray Shiro was only 62 years old.
Wow.
And
Incredible.
so for our music fans, I think they'll know. I certainly know Morton Klein, who's listening to the show today, knows who Clem Burke was. Clem Burke was 70 years old, but he was the drummer for Blondie. And
Okay.
Blondie was a very popular band in the late 70s, early 80s. And he was 70 years old, but a very good drummer for that Deborah Harry and the band Blondie. And Eli, this is kind of a little heartbreaking one for me.
Absolutely.
Very close to my St. Joe's, Stephen Rice, 54 years old. And, I think I brought up on the show a few weeks ago, he got ill, and 54 is a state championship player on two St. Joe's football teams. And just a tragic loss, only 54 years old, young kids. But I had an opportunity to speak to him at all the St. Joe's games that I attended, and kind of caught me off guard. So I know how tight your St. Mary's family is, and it's just the same at St. Joe's and basically every school. But I knew him, and he was a very, very nice man, and it's very young,
Absolutely.
54 years old. Terrible news.
Very sorry to hear that, Jim.
Yep. So
But on the brighter note, we had a great show today, and we have much more sports to talk about next week. It's our Easter day, Easter weekend show, and we hope you tune us in then. That'll be 10 o'clock right here on Sports with Mono Mono.
yes, and like I said, we're going to start having some guests on. We'll have Diego, we'll have JR on,
We'll have tons
and we
more
can have
on.
some other ones lined up. And also, Eli, let our viewers know that we're expanding, and we're going to now be available to watch Sports with Mono and Mono on Spotify
Yeah.
starting probably
You'll be able
next
to
week.
listen. You won't be able to watch us face to face, but you'll be able to
Yeah,
listen to us on Spotify. We're working on trying to get that up possibly next week. We will keep you posted, but that is we're looking to get onto Spotify hopefully by next week. So we'll keep you posted once all the details are announced. So stay tuned for stuff, and of course follow us on Instagram and of course on X and Facebook, wherever you and subscribe here on YouTube if you have not already at Sports with Mono and Mono on YouTube. And if
yeah.
you want to send us an email, feel free to do so at sportswithmonomono@gmail.com.
Yeah, and like I said, thanks to William for sending a comment out. Maybe I don't know if it's a first time listener, but we appreciate it. Our show is growing, and like I said, we look forward to it every week, and we'll be back here same time next week. I
Yep.
actually may be doing it remote. I'm not sure about that
All
yet.
right.
Maybe
We'll hear
hanging
about
out.
where this amazing adventure is going to be. We'll find out soon.
We will. So listen, everybody, enjoy the Masters weekend because it's a great event. And
Absolutely.
Eli, you have yourself a good week. I know you brought up that baseball season is starting in the Northeast, and you're still calling the games for St.
Yes, I am.
Mary's, which is great. With your partner Jack, um, and keep us posted on that. Hopefully, you guys have a good, successful baseball season. And
Absolutely.
like I
Appreciate it.
said, with the price of Major League Baseball games and tickets, go see a high school game, go see a college game.
It's a lot cheaper.
It's a lot cheaper. It is.
Absolutely.
All right,
All right,
Eli.
everyone.
Great job. Thanks for joining us. And
We'll see you all at 10 o'clock next week.
have yourself a good week, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah. Bye-bye, everyone.